Hi, welcome to week one of client-side web development. And we will get started with lesson one. In this lesson, we're going to have an introduction to web development. So we'll go through, we'll do a brief history of HTML and the World Wide Web, creating web content, understanding web content delivery, selecting a web hosting provider, testing multiple web browsers, creating a sample file, and using FTP to transfer files. And we'll also understand where to place files on your web server and also distributing content without a web server. So the internet was invented on January 1st, 1983, when the TCP/IP protocol was established. The first version of HTML was written by Tim Berners-Lee in 1993. And that year, only about 100 or so computers were equipped to serve HTML in pages. Soon after, programs began writing software that would be able to view the HTML pages, and this became the modern web browser we know today. So creating web content. So web content is created using text that's marked up by HTML codes. Other files contain CSS that tells the browser how a page should look. And in addition, JavaScript tells the browser how a page should interact with the user. In its most fundamental form, web content begins with a simple text file containing HTML markup. Several processes occur in many different locations to eventually produce web content that you can see. A web browser requests content from a web server, and the web server sends a response back to the web browser. One thing is, once you get your website completed, you're going to want to host it so that other people can get to your website. So a lot of times you may pick a web hosting provider, and it should be selected using the following criteria: reliability, server uptime, customer service, server space, bandwidth, domain name purchasing and management, and also price. Because depending on if this is just like a hobby site, you're not going to want to pay a lot of money. So something to consider. One thing you want to do with your website is once you get it up and running, you want to go ahead and test it on various browsers, because you don't know which browser people are going to use to go to your website. So some of the popular browsers out there are Apple Safari, Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, Microsoft Edge, and Opera. Google Chrome is probably the most popular one out there now, but depending on your platform, you may be using one of the other browsers mentioned. All right, so first thing you want to do to get started is you want to create a sample file. There's a lot of good text editors out there. The one I'm going to be using is Visual Studio Code. That's the first one mentioned, but there's other ones out there: Coda, HTMLKit, Komodo Edit, Notepad++, and Sublime Text. So if you want a quick look at what Visual Studio looks like, this here is Visual Studio Code, and not to be confused with the Visual Studio that you use in other programming classes for coding in like Visual Basic, C#, SQL Server. You could use Microsoft has Visual Studio, but that's the commercial product. Visual Studio Code is actually an open source product that Microsoft released. That's a really great code editor. A lot of people use Visual Studio Code because it's free, and it's also a pretty good text editor. It's got a lot of plugins that you can use, etc. So where do you get Visual Studio Code? So let me go ahead and flip back here. I think I discussed this. Before we get there, let me go to, if you search for Visual Studio Code, if you Google it, it'll take you right to their website. And if you click on Visual Studio Code, you'll see that it's free to download because it's basically free. It's a free product. It's open source, so they have a lot of people contributing to it. Again, if you want to go ahead and download it, just hit the download button. And depending on your site, I'm on a Mac, so this download for Mac defaults here. But if you were on Windows, it would default to whatever platform you're on. Okay, FTP. So if your website is hosted, you're going to have to transfer your HTML files up to your web host provider. A lot of times you'll use FTP to do that. Visual Studio Code, they do have a plugin that lets you do that. There's a bunch of plugins. So if I go over here, if you look over in the left-hand bar here, there's one of this icon here is for extensions. So let's say you want an extension to be able to FTP files. You can just type in FTP, and you can see there's a bunch of different FTP extensions that you can install with Visual Studio Code here. All right, so usually to connect to a web server to FTP, you need the host name of the web server or the FTP site that's associated with that web server, your username, and your password. Some popular FTP clients, like I said, you can use the extension, or if you want your own client, Classic FTP, CyberDuck, FileZilla, and Transmit are popular clients. Again, using an FTP client, your FTP settings need to have the right settings when using the client. So you'll need the server, your username, and password, like we said before. You may need to put whatever the initial path is, port number, and there's other FTP options that you may need to select, depending on what is required from the FTP site that you're uploading your files to. Okay, so understanding where to place files on your web server. Your URLs change as you navigate through a site. So if you have a site called www.mycompany.name, the base directory comes after the slash, and then any folders off that base directory will come after the initial slash. So if you have a products folder on your site, it'd be /products, and then if you had services /services, etc. Every web server has a document root, and normally this is where you place your index.html in that document root. And this usually becomes the home page of the site. Distributing content without a web browser. You can publish content locally. Usually you need to have a web server running locally in order to run a website locally. Visual Studio Code has a plugin, which I have right here, called Live Server. So this Live Server, you see this little Go Live button down here. So if I click on here and type in Live Server, you can see it doesn't have an install button, so that means it's already installed. So we have Live Server here. So anything in this folder, if I click on Go Live, right now I don't have any files, but if I were to create a file, which I'm going to do in a little bit, um, that file can be displayed out to the up to my web browser. So let me go ahead and do a small little demo. So if I click on new file here and then type in index.html, that creates my first website. There's actually a shortcut that you can use. I think it's Shift. Hold on. I think that was a double slide. I think if I do that, there we go. Yeah, so if in Visual Studio Code you're an HTML file and you just do Shift and then exclamation point, it will automatically, and then hit enter, it will automatically give you a nice little templated HTML page. And then what I could do here is I can go to my body down here and create a quick little hello world page, save it, and now what I could do is I can click on this go live button, and what it should do is it should show this web page in my browser. So if I click on go live here in my browser, now you can see it creates like a little mini web server in my computer that points to that folder. That folder is the document root, which has this index.html page that you see here. And there's my hello world. All right. Let's see over here. Okay, I think that's it for lesson 1. We'll move on to lesson 2. All right, so now that we kind of got started with Visual Studio Code, how to create an index.html file, we're going to go ahead and talk about structuring your HTML document. So I'm going to go ahead here. Here we go. So in this lesson, we're going to create a simple web page in HTML. Going to include all the HTML tags that every page must have. I have to fix that. We're going to look at how to organize your page with paragraphs and line breaks, how to organize your content with headings, how to use semantic elements, semantic tags, with header and footer content, and we'll also talk about navigation and secondary content with your semantic tags, and how to use semantic tags to better structure your body content. So getting started with a simple web page. So here you see a nice simple web page. Notice the tags all have these angle brackets around them. So these are all elements of your page. So this is an HTML element. This is a head element, which has kind of like the header information. This head information doesn't display on the page. It's more stuff that the web browser uses to format the document and do other things. The actual part of the web page that displays is in between the body elements. So, and if you notice, the start element just has the name of the element, and the end element, the tag that ends the element, has a / before the name, and the name usually matches the start and end elements. So the only difference is the end has the / there. And here you can see the body tag, start and end, and then P is the paragraph tag. So this creates a nice little paragraph that people can write. So if we wanted to set that up in our page, you can see a lot of the head tags is already set up. So what we want to do is we'll go ahead and type in the first web page here. Web page. So that'll be our title. And again, this title doesn't show up on the page. This actually is what shows up in the browser. So if I go and save this, and then go back to here, you see now the browser tab has that title up here. But we haven't changed Hello World, so that hasn't changed yet. All right, so the next thing we want to do is we want to put our paragraph tag. So we'll go ahead and do that down here. So paragraph tag, and the nice thing about having a tool like Visual Studio Code is it automatically closes your elements and everything automatically, so it just makes it easier to type things in. Now, usually what I want to do, it's hard for me to think of stuff to type. So usually what I do is I go and go to Ipsum Lorem generator. And this just grabs sample text, which makes life a lot easier. So let's see if I could find, let's see, generate. All right, so let's say I just want to grab some nice text here. So I'll go ahead and save it. And the nice thing with the live server is it automatically updates your web page. So if I go back to my web page, you'll see my my text. As soon as I save the file, it automatically updates the page. So that's kind of nice. All right, so that's our first web page. We'll move on. All right, so these are tags every web page must have. They should have an HTML, that doc type HTML at the very top. That tells it that this is an HTML5 document. You have the HTML tags, which are around there. Then you have your body, your head, and your title, which we saw before. Now, so you can organize your page with paragraphs and line breaks. So let's look at adding some paragraphs here. So that's paragraph 1. Do another paragraph. So here we'll do paragraph 2, paragraph 3. So we'll save it. We'll take a look over here, see what it looks like. You can see these are separate paragraphs. The web browser automatically spaces them out, so they're separated from the other paragraphs. And that's something the web browser does for you. You can also do organize a page with line breaks. So if you put a BR, that will create a line break, but it's gonna look different. So if I go over here and do let's say I just start writing line break 1, BR, line break 2, BR, and line break 3. Okay, we'll save that. We'll go here. And you can see the line breaks look different than the paragraphs. The paragraph automatically spaces the paragraph out for you. Line breaks, it does not give you that the paragraph spacing there. So that's the major difference between the paragraph spacing and the line break spacing there. Organizing your contents. So again, you may want to put headers onto your paragraphs or before each paragraph. It's one way to organize your content. So if we go over here, I put one header here. We're going to go ahead and put other headers. Header 2. There's header 3. I'll put another header. Down here. Okay, we'll save it and then move over here. See what's going on. Yep, you can see each header appears and now actually separates those paragraphs even more. Okay, another way to kind of organize your different sections of your page are what you use what are called semantic elements. They're different elements so that you can kind of tell. And the nice thing about these elements is a lot of screen readers use that information, especially for people that maybe have poor eyesight or are blind and still have to navigate a web page. The screen reader will tell them, hey, you're in a header, you're in a footer, and then they're just listening to the screen reader as it reads things out. So again, some of the different things, you can give it what the header of your page is, you can give it your footer, a navigation bar. So if you have a navigation bar, probably surround it with these nav elements. You can create a separate section, an article, and a side. So these are the main semantic elements that are available to you. And the way you would use them is, again, if you had like a main header section, like this hello world, well then what you could do is you could surround it with the header element. And then inside of there, this is where you would contain your actual header. So this is where the hello world header would sit. But honestly, you wouldn't notice the difference because when we go to the actual site and take a look, nothing's really changed here. It's these semantic elements aren't anything that you can visually see. They're just really there for things like screen readers to be able to read. All right, let's go back here. So the header element can contain different elements like that H1 tag. You could put an image in there, or you can combine a header and an image element. The section element, you can think of that, could be defined as a thematic grouping of content. And typically it has a heading of some sort on it. An article is a complete self-contained composition in a document. So you can kind of think of it like as a newspaper or magazine has an article. So you would, if you were creating like the web page version of that, you would wrap the article in these article tags to kind of separate that from the other articles in the magazine or on your web page. Nav element is really for navigation. So you can use these navigation elements to kind of separate and say, okay, these list items are actually for navigation purposes. So what we probably do is usually the navigation elements may be sometimes at the top, sometimes under the header. You can put them in different places, but for now, let's put our navigation elements here. And then what we'll do is we'll use list items to kind of separate them. We'll use an unordered list. And then I believe, what was it? Oh, list item. Yep. Oh, sorry. I did the wrong one. This should have been unordered list, should have been the first one. So list item is actually my mistake. So we're going to go ahead and do list item. Say you want your home page is first navigation item. Then you have contents. And you have, let's say, you have an about page. Right now there's no links on these, so this doesn't do anything. But this is just to kind of show you how you may have a navigation item. Now normally your navigation items are styled a little better, so they look like menus. But right now we haven't styled it, so it's got the default HTML styling of a list item. Okay, so that's their navigation. In a side, again, you surround content that's tangentially related with the content around it. Footer, so if you wanted to put things, usually in your footers you could put like copyright symbols and the company name or something like that, and you usually put it at the bottom of the page. So if we wanted to add a footer here, you can go ahead and do footer, and then what did we do there? We just used the paragraph. So we just use the paragraph element, and then we'll put a copyright symbol, and we'll say CT State Company Inc. Something like that. Okay, so we'll save that, and then we'll go over to Google Chrome. Go back, and here you see that copyright is down here. This is in the footer. Okay, so let's move on to the last lesson, which is lesson 3. In this lesson, we're going to understand what cascading style sheets are, how to create the basic style sheet, how to use style classes, how to use style IDs, how to construct internal style sheets and inline styles. We'll look at CSS, the language, and how it defines different styles, how it can change fonts, colors, positioning. It can be stored in the same HTML file or in a separate CSS file. It's good practice, best practice to store it in a separate file, but we'll show you how to link your HTML page to that file. And the reason you want to do it in a separate file is because that way you have all your stylings in one place, and you don't have them all over the place in different HTML files. So it just separates the styling from the content. Internal style sheet basically is placed directly in the HTML page, and that's okay if you're just experimenting. But once you have it set, you definitely want to be using a separate CSS file. And that's where we want to use external style sheets. Okay, so an example of an internal style is you can actually, one way to style it is you can actually put the style attributes in your elements. So if I wanted to go ahead and style, let's say, this paragraph over here, I could say style equals, and then I can give it, let's see, we had the, let's say a color green. So color green. Let's do that. So now, if we go ahead and switch over here. Oh, did I do the wrong? Oh, hold on. Let's see where we are here. Color. Oh, I forgot my semicolon there. That's why. Leave it. Do semicolon there. Save it. Now my header 2 should be green. Why isn't it? Oh, what was it? My paragraph was supposed to be green. Let's see, where are we here? Let's see. Yeah, usually that should have worked. Oh, I see, because I put it in the end tag and not. That's my mistake. I put this in the end tag here. So let's save that. I think this should look a lot better now. And it does. So here it's styled the paragraph and colored the font green, as I stated there. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at this. So here's an example of an external style sheet. So the way you create your external style sheet is you have to create a separate file. So here, if you look at the index.html, you want to go ahead and click on new file and then give it a name. Usually I give it style.css. Right? So that creates my CSS file. And now if I look over here, there's a lot of different things you could do, but let me go ahead and just give it a, I'll just change the color of the body of the text. So here we'll say body, and then we'll create a rule for the body. And in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to just give it somewhere out we'll give it a purple color there. But now we have to associate that style, that color, with this page. And this is where you have to do this up here in the header. And usually what you do is, I think it's the link tag. Let me just double check, because I know I have this a little further. Oh, there we go. Link, yeah. You have to say rel equals style sheet, and then the href points to the file, which is at styles.css. And href equals that style.css. I think that's it. So if I save that, then I flip back over here, and now you notice everything's purple except for the paragraph that we made green. So the default color is going to be purple because we put that style at the body of the tag, but we can override that by changing the style on the individual body there. So let's say we want to change all the paragraphs to a specific color. Let's say blue. All right. So if we go to our style sheet and say, hey, I want to set a rule where all my paragraphs, the colors are going to be blue. All right. So we save that. We go back over here. And now you could see everything is blue because these are paragraphs, except for this one because uh, the inline style takes precedent over the CSS style. So because we declared this style inline, this overrides the CSS style. All right. So other thing to remember is that there's these layout properties and they affect the positioning of the elements on the page. So they can change things. You can change like the margins, padding, alignment, and that changes how things are formatted on the page. There's also some formatting properties that affect the visual display of elements in a web page, such as the font size, font type, size, and color. So every your CSS has different layout properties. So there's a element that's displayed on a new line, as in a new paragraph. So it's a block. So an example of a block display is the paragraph, where everything appears on its own line and it's got spacing between each one. A list item is an element that's displayed on a line with a bullet next to it. And then inline is displayed in line with the current paragraph. Inline block is a combination of inline and the block element. And none basically hides it. So if you have display none, it hides it on the page. Okay, you can also specify height and width properties of different elements, and they actually give you a wide range of measurements that you can use. You can do it in inches, centimeters, ems, ems, millimeters, percentage, pixels, points, and rems. So they give you a wide variety of measurements that you can use to size different things on your web page. Um, you can create borders, and so you can change things like the border width, and again I misspelled width there. Should be a D in there. The border color, the border style, border left, right, top, bottom, and then you can do border, and it'll create a border on all sides. The different styles of the border. You can have a solid, double, dashed, dotted, groove, ridge, and inset. So I'll go back up here just to kind of show you some of the nice layout properties. So what I'm going to use is create a div tag. This is kind of like a nice tag that you can use to create a division. So what I could do as I style it, so I can set up a rule in my CSS file that the div tag will have a border and then that border, let's give it something really thick, like as 5 pixels wide. So if I save that, go back here and look at my first page. Right now you don't see it because I think I need to have something inside the div tag. So I'll just do a quick paragraph. It says hello. And here's hello, but there's no border. Oh, I think it's because I need I don't know, I did 5 pixels. Well, maybe it was border width, 5 pixels. I believe believe I'm missing something, but let me go through the rest of these. Yeah, see this border dash width, I think. Yeah, I did do have border dash width. So if I have border dash width, let's see where we have an example of this. I think I have an example further down. Yeah. You could put a radius on your border and give the border color. Oh, yeah, maybe that's what I need. I need actual color on the border. Border color. Let me make this gray. I think that sets the. Yeah, no, it's still not setting the color there. Right. So we have a green color. Oh, it's still not taking. Border dash color. Yep, it does do a border color there. Then there's text properties for. Oh, these are different text properties that you can add, and this puts fonts, color, text decoration, etc. So, oh yeah, and then using style classes so you can style things. Yeah, sometimes. So there's my div. Should have been over here, and then there's the property. All right. All right. Let's go over here. One of the other things you could do is you can actually create different classes, and then anything with that class will carry that style. So the rule over here is you could say, hey, let's have, I want to create a blue style, and then anything that has that class will have the color blue, right? And we'll have a green style, then this will be green there. And I think we're good there. So now what we could do, let me go back here. Let's say I want to apply a style to a particular paragraph, right? So I could say class equals green. So if we do that, and now this is green over here. Then we could do the same thing. Let's see, that I made green. That's already automatically going to be blue anyways. So that's good for now. But you get the idea. All right. So that's how to use classes. IDs is similar. The only difference is if you notice where classes use the dot in the CSS file to indicate this is the rule for a class. For an ID, let's say you have an ID called title, use the hashtag to denote the rule for the title. So the rule for the ID. And then what you want to do is anything that you want to be styled with that ID, you just put that ID equals title so that it matches the ID that you put in your CSS. So you could put a lot of internal style sheets inside your HTML. Again, this is okay if you just want to experiment, but again, best practice is to put it into your into a separate external style sheet, because then you could reuse the same style on multiple pages, not just one. Span, this is just another element that's available to you. Let's say you just had some text that you want to apply a style to, and that's actually a good example over here, because these don't have anything, any kind of element. So if we want to say span, close our span tag, and let's say we want to say, hey, I want to make this this blue. So if you remember, we created a class called blue, and if we save it and go over here, you notice now that that text that I put the span tag is now blue. All right, and I think this concludes our lesson. Thank you, and we'll speak again next week.